Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the City Lifting Vlog, where we talk about weightlifting, we talk about technique, we talk about mobility, and then you get to look inside my training. My name's Julia. Slightly new location today, same stuff. Today, we're gonna talk about ways to develop unilateral leg strength. I had the question the other day, which is a totally valid question, from a newer athlete who was like, well, if you're always using the same leg forward in a jerk, wouldn't that leg get stronger? Kind of. The answer is not necessarily stronger. You're going to develop speed and power and strength to an extent in different ways. Now, if you're a competitive weightlifter, that's what we want. We want to get really proficient at moving exactly the same way every time so that it doesn't require any thought. If you're doing this more recreationally, you can play around with things like bad leg jerks and trying to switch sides until you find something that feels more comfortable. I think in both cases, it becomes really, really important to have consistent, regular, unilateral, meaning single leg, strength, speed, and power development. I'm gonna go through a few things that you could do for that. We're going to gradually build up from more static exercises to things that are a little bit more dynamic and plyometric in nature, and then tackling the dreaded bad leg jerk. So one of the first things I'm gonna do is a weighted lunge. I also realize I don't have shoes on. You could do these barefoot, that's cool. We can load these a number of different ways. I have dumbbells with me, they're just gonna sit at my side. I'm not super concerned with how you're loading, whether it's top loaded, bottom loaded. I'm more concerned with your ability to maintain balance, and what angles you're hitting. I'm going to do a bunch stepping forward with my left leg because when I jerk, I step forward with my right. So this range of motion I am less comfortable with. I'm always going to target the thing that I do less frequently. I'm going to take a large enough step forward that I can get my back knee all the way to the floor and be able to still push off of this front leg to come back up. So I'm able to decelerate and come back up. I'm keeping balance, back up, and you'll notice if I go from the front, my feet are staying in line with my hips. You can lunge a number of different ways, right? We can step forward, we can step backwards, you can do a split squat, stay in place. I would say whatever is the most challenging, start with that. Feel free to start at body weight and then gradually build up to holding on to some outside load. You can go dumbbells, kettlebells, you can load a bar on your body, go from there.
Next thing we have is a single leg step up. These don't have to be super high, but you should be able to control the range of motion both on the ascend and the descend. A little push from this bottom leg, you will be able to stand all the way up with control, come back down. Up and down.
Pro tip, use a hard box. Soft boxes are a little challenging, right? They make it a little more unstable for your leg. Also really pay attention to where your knee is in relation to your foot. When you're stepping, we don't want that knee to collapse in, right? We always want to maintain full foot contact and joints lined up. So we're gonna make this a little more demanding now. So far, what we've done has used definitely your knee joint and primarily your hip joint. We haven't gotten into the ankle a whole lot, and that's what this next one is for, is to start to integrate hip, knee, ankle movement on one leg, which is gonna require more stability, more strength, more mobility, and that is the single leg squat.
I want to find and load that standing leg. So the leg is just going to be in front of me, and I only need to sit to a depth where I can still come back up with control. So I'm going to sit. Notice this knee is still right on top of my ankle, it hasn't caved in, and then I'm able to push through a full foot to stand up.
Control is the name of the game on that one, right? We want to be able to build strength and stability and control one leg at a time. So if you're bouncing or if you're using the other leg or if you're using momentum, we're not really able to do that. So now we can start to get into some more dynamic things like single leg jumps. So I like broad jumps, single leg broad jumps, as well as jumps for height, usually up to a box, both of which I'm going to show you here. Notice on all of those, I'm really prioritizing being able to land with a lot of stability, that I'm not losing my balance and falling around. If that starts to feel like too much, if you're struggling to both produce the force and stop it, take it back a step and we could do something called a depth drop only on one leg, right? So as opposed to working on building explosive strength, if we're not quite there yet, let's take it back and work on developing your ability to decelerate, right? To slow down. Depth drop, I'm gonna start on top of my box. I'm going to land on the leg that I want to build that stability on. So I'm gonna land, control that landing. Up. Try those depth drops, see if that helps fix some of your landing issues, and then you can take it back to those single leg box or broad jumps. So as I mentioned, if we want to start to get more complex about developing speed and power on your lesser used leg, or maybe you just have a strength imbalance from one side to another, one of the things that we can do is a bad leg jerk. It's not to imply that the leg we're using is bad, it's just the leg you don't normally use when doing your split jerks. I do recommend starting off light with these. They can be kind of confusing initially, especially if you're a seasoned lifter and you've never done them before. It's gonna be really awkward for your body the first few attempts. So keep it light, focus on timing, focus on speed in getting into that split stance, and then stability once you get there. So one of the things that you might be asking is, why block work? What's the point? What's the benefit? Why would I want to do lifts from the blocks instead of from the floor? Blocks allow us to troubleshoot and work specifically from above the knee, usually from above the knee and beyond. So if there's a timing or a positional issue, we can take out the pull from the floor variable, which can often be quite taxing because there's no momentum, right? We're starting from a dead stop, especially with cleans, that can often feel really heavy and taxing, and focus just on the mechanics of what happens. Because of that, it also allows us to work on speed more. You have less room to generate momentum so that you're able to really force the athlete to focus on a faster pull under. For me, it really reinforces the timing of when my hips come through and helps me to work on that. It also helps me in my cleans specifically focus on my footwork in the landing. And because of that, it's a really helpful thing to add If you are trying to minimize the amount of loading on the athlete's back, like if they're already pulling, if they're already doing stuff from the floor, if they're already squatting, that might be a lot of stimulus that they're getting onto their low back, and we can help minimize some of that by having them pull from blocks instead of the ground sometimes.